today we're making a Swedish classic that's called Wallenbergare, and this is ground veal, potato puree, peas and lingonberryjam. And this dish clocks in at 735 calories per portion, 48 grams of proteins, 73 grams of carbs and 24 grams of fat. To start this off, we need to make our own spice blend, and this is something that's called a piece, and it's made out of 2 parts of nutmeg, 2 parts white pepper, 1 part allspice and 1 part carnation. And for this recipe I'm going to be doing the low calorie version, which is the 735 version, and I'm also going to include the high calorie option, which uses a lot more cream and a lot more butter, but it tastes better, so if you want to do that, that's fine. So all we need to do for this is measure our spices. I'm going to be using spice measurements, that's 1 milliliter, or you can just go by the grams. So roughly 0.3 grams for the 1 part and double that if you want to do 2 parts. So 0.6 grams of nutmeg, white pepper, and then 0.3 grams for the allspice and carnation. And you can either buy ground veal. I had a big piece of veal in the fridge, so I'm gonna be grinding that myself. But if you want to use regular ground beef, that works fine as well. For this recipe we're gonna do 500 grams, and we're going to need 3 egg yolks that we're gonna mix in our ground beef, and we're also gonna be using 2 deciliters of low-fat cream. And if you're doing this the traditional way, you should use 6 egg yolks for 500 grams and also 5 deciliters of regular cream. If you do the traditional way, your beef patties is going to be super airy and very fluffy and very light. Very fat, but very light to eat. But the texture is going to be very light. Doing it this way, they're going to be a little bit more dense, but I think that's fine. If you want to add something, you can always add some breadcrumbs to make them a bit lighter. If you have a food processor, you want to use the blade attachment for that and just mix everything together. Again, here if you do the traditional way, it's easier if everything's real cold, so if you just keep it in the fridge until you start, then everything should be fine. And then don't mix it too much, just until everything is mixed together, otherwise cream might split. For our method here, however, it's not a problem. Just throw everything in there, in with the spice, and we're also going to be adding 1.5 tablespoons of salt. Then we're going to give that a final mix. And then for our potato puree, I'm doing 300 grams of potatoes that I'm just going to cut up because that makes them cook a lot faster. And we're going to bring that to a boil and leave it for now. And returning to our beef mixture here, beef patty paste, we're going to be putting panko on a plate, and for the times I've done this, I measured the average value of how much panko you use for actually coating the outside of these, and it's roughly 32 grams. And all we need to do is scoop this out of the bowl and put it on a plate, and it's going to be, and try to make 6 beef patties that's roughly the same size. And after that, all we need to do is flip them and coat them on the other side. As I said, this traditionally uses a lot of fat, so that means that traditionally you would use lots and lots of butter to fry this in, And then you should, and if you're at a Swedish restaurant and order this, they will pour butter and everything in the end as well. But since I'm trying to reduce the amount of calories here, I'm adding 15 grams of butter, and that's going to be enough for one side to crisp up roughly. So if you want both sides to be crispy, do twice the amount of butter at least. You can use half at the start and then add 15 grams more when you flip everything. And we're also going to heat up 30 grams of peas. This is also coupled with a thing that's called lingonberryjam, which, if you're living outside of Sweden, is something I'm guessing you haven't heard of. But if you have an IKEA close to you, that's something that you can go there and buy. And even though IKEA isn't the highest quality of for food, I think it's worth a try. It's a very nice jam that we pair with a lot of things. So for our potato puree, as I said, we have 300 grams of potatoes, and since we want to make somewhat of a potato puree, I'm going to press these. You can also do mashed potato and it's going to be roughly the same. But for 300 grams of potatoes, I like to use 60 grams of milk. As always with potatoes, they require a lot of salt to be somewhat tasty. So a lot of salt here and roughly 60 grams of milk, and this will come together to a nice potato puree. And we're also going to be grinding some nutmeg in there, and then just stir this together. And that's basically it. And this is our final result. I hope you give this Swedish classic a try, and I hope you buy the lingonberries and try them as well. I'm going to be doing some other stuff with lingonberries eventually, so that's going to be a good thing to have at hand. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoy.